One of the most limiting qualities of human beings is that we stick to the familiar. Our loyalty is to what we know, and it's typically out of necessity that most people discard their allegiance to what's familiar and explore the unknown and the unfamiliar. So when we look for answers in familiar places. You'd be surprised how many people ignore good advice simply because it didn't come from a familiar place. I study people and their motivations, so I look at all paths. I listen to what people have to say regardless of their drivers or their motives. And it's incredible what you can learn by doing that. And in my case, one of the most poignant remarks I have come across in a while was by a teacher called Abraham Hicks. She said, "Put some distance between your question and the answer." It sounds good, but most people won't do anything with that because Abraham Hicks is an unfamiliar teacher. But if you break down what she said, if you really break it down, some major things can change for you. Put some distance between the question and the answer. Put some distance between your question and the answer. Just think about that for a minute. Everyone has problems. It's just the way it is. You can't escape the problems you have. You don't want to be stuck with the same ones for too long either, but you can't escape problems. You don't want to be dealing with the same issues this year as you did last year, but you can't escape problems. You don't want to deal with the exact same frustrations that haunted you last year. You don't want to deal with that this year. You want some new answers and some timely solutions. But the truth is that there are a lot of people with persistent problems. The same problems last year, they're in this year. You're fighting the same battles this year as you've been fighting for the last 3 years. You're complaining about the same thing this year as you've been complaining about for the last 7 years. Some people are still angry about the same thing they were angry about 20 years ago. Oh, she never apologized to me. I know she didn't, but do you realize how long ago that was? No, it wasn't fair. They should have promoted me. I know it wasn't fair, but that was 15 years ago. He stole my girlfriend. That was 20 years ago. They're married with 4 kids now, and you're still angry? The problem isn't the problem. The problem is that you won't let go. You won't let it go. What I mean is that your attention is focused on the problem and not on the answer. You're heartbroken. It happens. That's your problem. It's the question you have. How do I stop feeling like this? This devastated, this broken. How do I move on? How do I love again? Or maybe you're broke. I mean, your money comes in every month, but it's never enough. It's spent before you see it. And your question is, how do I get to financial security? I believe that you're not just what you think about, you're also what you feel about. How do you feel about your question? That's what you're thinking about. You're heartbroken, you're disillusioned and unmotivated. You're thinking about that. That's your question. That's what your question is about. How do you feel about your question? I'm asking about how you feel because I want to know where your attention is. How you feel is where your focus is, and if you're focused on what's missing, how will you know when the answer comes? The question is important, but you need to get your attention off the question and prepare for the answer. Don't let your focus on the question delay the answer. That's what the space between your question and the answer is all about. It gives you room to prepare for the answer, room to switch gears, to get into position, to be on the right dial. It's like your problem is on channel 5 and the answer is on channel 25. You need to change the channel. Remember, I said a good deal of this has to do with how you feel. I know how you feel about the question, but how do you feel about the answer? What would it feel like to love again? What would it feel like to never have to worry about making the rent? If you can't focus on the answer like that, then at least forget about the question. You've asked it, now leave it alone. Let the answer come. It's what happens when you're at your desk pulling your hair out, trying to figure out a problem for hours, and then finally you give up and you throw your hands up in utter frustration. You go for a walk to clear your mind, and just like that, the answer pops into your head. Well, it's the same principle, only this time I'm not talking about some issue at work. I'm talking about your life. You know, there was another teacher who gave the same advice. Be not anxious for the morrow. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, and yet even Solomon in all his glory was not dressed like any of these. And if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is cast into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, faithless ones? That was the advice of the teacher from Galilee. Put some distance between your question and the answer, and get ready for what's coming. My name is Angelo, and I'm the motivator.